Okay, let's have a little clarification on this term mana, and one of these times we're going to have a full session on it, but there's a lot of misunderstanding about mana. And it mainly comes from a common perception, even among a lot of Hawaiians, that mana is energy. And this perception is fostered by anthropologists who study indigenous cultures. And from Polynesia, they got this concept of mana, which to the Western anthropological mind was some sort of mysterious fluid that influenced things. And if you could only catch enough of this, I was even reading today, and the person who checked that ought to have known better, but if you have enough mana, then you can do this. And that's got it totally backwards. If you can do this, then you have the mana. Mana, in its essence, means power. And it's the power to produce an effect. So another term we could use is influence. Okay? If you have a lot of energy, and that energy has an effect, the effect is the mana that comes from having so much energy. Like a tree with a powerful energy field that heals anybody that walks next to it. Wow, that tree has a lot of mana because it has a lot of influence on its environment. Okay? Same with a mystic who's reached a state of bliss and people get healed when they walk into his aura. That person has a lot of mana, like a tree. Okay? But mana can come from many, many kinds of things. Mana can come from your position in a government. Mana can come from your skills. Mana can come from your responsibility. Let's say if you're in charge of something, or you have been charged with keeping a sacred object, that responsibility will give you a lot of mana and influence. Your words will have mana because of your responsibility, your position.
So I'm curious, like the sort of judicial side versus the person who has ceased to completely identify with their existence and is thus, in a sense, a whole in the relativistic experience. They're like basically a portal into the luminous void that heals by vaporizing all identity.
Okay. Whereas
the other, the judicial, is like basically like a relativistic game of pushing and pulling.
Okay. This is coming from a different set of assumptions than I usually use. But even in this, with this set, using this set, what we're talking about here is not pushing or pulling.
Right.
What we're talking about, mana, is not pushing or pulling. Mana is when you have the power to make something happen. And that can be if you are utilizing a skill, but any real good athlete is not pushing or pulling in the sense of efforting. They're just channeling the energy and using their skill, right? Or a tree is just sitting there being what it is and still having an influence, okay? So mana is this kind of power. It's not the power of aggression. It's not the power of force, the power of destruction, or the power, none of these negative powers. Mana has no negative connotation at all. It's always, it can be with some people, especially a government, they can misuse their mana. Even a chief in ancient Hawaii could misuse his mana, but that's not mana itself. Mana is the power to influence. Okay? So energy is often involved, but not always.
Okay. So, could you, by increasing the influence, increase the power?
That's how it's done. And how do you influence? Well, no, it's doing something that increases. It's doing something that increases your influence. Doing that increases your mana. That's why I said mana can come from skill. It can come from applied energy. It can come from position. Listen how I said that. The mana comes from that. See? You don't get the mana first and then have that. It doesn't work that way. That's why all the most powerful gods in old Hawaii were the most powerful aspects of nature. Their mana was intrinsic to their being. Fire, wind, stone, these were the things that had power. Right? And it was intrinsic to them. They didn't get the mana first and then be able to have the influence. Mana is the expression of your influence. Yeah.
So then you look at also looking at influence. The thing I feel from him sometimes is mainly ego, but sometimes I feel it's quite larger than what it needs to be, I guess. You understand what I'm saying?
Also in
huge mana
okay, let me explain this. Also in my tradition, we don't use the ego concept. Okay, you simply are who you are whenever you are, and sometimes your sense of self is larger than usual. Okay, so what we talk about is some traditions want to diminish the ego and let something else replace it, but they're never really clear about what that is. And we say, hey, if you're going to use ego, expand it until it includes everybody else. And you get the same effect without diminishing yourself. Okay? So you don't need to use that concept as a way to try to be lesser. How can you be lesser? How is that going to help you help others? You've got to become more of what you are and more of what you can do. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's why Hawaiians will end this with just a bit of Hawaii. And Hawaiians have this wonderful expression that they use when they're greeting or saying farewell, or even if they're talking about going someplace. But one way to say good evening, the word for evening is ahi ahi. And so to say good evening, which as a greeting would be aloha ahi ahi. But if I were to say that to this group and if I were doing it really Hawaiian style, it would be aloha ahi ahi kaua. Aloha ahi ahi kako. If I say aloha ahi ahi kako, that doesn't mean good evening to all of you out there. It means good evening to all of us, including me. That's the sense of expanding to include others. Mahalo.